Hi, I'm Richard Price, and this is Chad
There it is.
Lott. A few years ago, he told my wife Nancy that his mother, he wanted to give her a birthday gift for her 80th birthday, and said that she was born out of wedlock, and he wanted to find out who her father, her birth father, was. So we started working on that, and I'll just let Chad tell what happened.
Well, I was really curious after years of my mother's curiosity about her biological father. She found out when she was 12 years old that her biological father, who she thought was her biological father, was not her biological father. And when that question was pressed to her mother, my grandmother Mildred, uh, at that age and that time, there was associated amount of shame with anyone being born out of wedlock. And my mother had a wonderful, wonderful stepfather, Steele Howard Sorensen. And so she was very shocked and very upset. And the conversation with my grandmother did not go very well. She was in denial about wanting to admit that and wanting to give my mother any details on that. So my mother lived with a bunch of cryptic and very small details about her father, John Tomsick. And my grandmother, I believe, kind of led her into a direction. We thought maybe it was supposed to be. We couldn't tell whether it was going to be a distraction or whether she was trying to lead her off the trail a little bit by dates and times and where he had lived. Uh, but through your help, we ended up being able to research and put all those pieces together and find out that for her 80th birthday, the whereabouts of her father, and luckily that she had six biological brothers, half brothers. So it was kind of an answer to an answer to a lot of questions and a long search for her. And I think it really brought the end of her life an extraordinary amount of meaning. Um, it was so well. Um, it was so well respected by her biological brothers too, to allow her the opportunity to come in and to really feel loved and appreciated. And I do know that that is a rarity. On certain times, maybe a lot of people don't have that reaction when they do find a family, or you find a family that had no idea that you existed. There's a lot of confusion, and there's an understanding of the emotional nature and the difficulty of uh, people's behavior, relationships, or children that were born previous to what they considered to be their their life, their relationship. These brothers were very upset with their father that he had kept this secret. They were very confused as to why this had been held from them, and they had said we really could have used a sister over the course of these last 80 years. So it's a remarkable gift to explore, and I feel honestly that anybody that is wanting to research and wanting to do that, I feel like it's always scary to find out whether or not that would be reciprocated. But I can guarantee that through our experience, if you make one contact with one extended family member, it brings such meaning to your life and such validity to to your genealogy, to where you truly end up. My mother said if there would have only been one person, not a huge extended Tomsick family, that embraced me, it would have been worth it, because I would have had a connection to uh, I would have had a connection to my real biological family. And it doesn't diminish how she was raised on the Steele's side and the Underwood side. From where she came, she had these wonderful, remarkable memories and these experiences, and this just added on a piece of that. It grew her family. It didn't change, I think, the dynamics and the relationships. And I think she was worried about the betrayal that that would cause. Worried about the fact that it would be, maybe hurting the feelings of family members and turning into a different family. But it just became the excitement of her entire extended family, who through her life knew this story and were rooting for her to find those solutions. And thanks to you, that happened. It was pretty great, and it was really fast, by the way. It was remarkable.
So she was born in Los Angeles, right?
Yes, Los Angeles Salvation Army Hospital for Unwed Mothers.
So we knew we had the possible name of the father, John Tomsick,
Yes, we did.
and that he was from Colorado and was a delivery man in Los Angeles.
We did not know the extent of his. We did not know the extent of his career. What we did find out later is that he did work for a steel distribution company, and they had started a small company under the Tomsick name. The brothers had started this. I believe it came from original. Its origination was one of the uncles, actually, one of John Tomsick's uncles. So he was second generation American, Polish, and so they were from Colorado. They settled from first initially coming from Poland. They came to mine in Pennsylvania, and then they came out to, believe Utah or Colorado, and bought some land and took up ranching and farming. And then there were some connections to Los Angeles, and so that is where the steel came in. But he was working and transitioning from Colorado to, from what I understand, from what they gather, um, in a sales position for the steel company. I think, and he came between Colorado, his family home, and then Los Angeles. But he lived and resided in Los Angeles permanently when he left Colorado.
So how did things change with your mother and her newfound brothers? How were things different after they met each other?
Um, I think the most impactful thing is just that you understand you have an extension of family. You have your family grew, and I think there's a lot of what ifs. What if we had all known each other? What if we would have been together? I think there was a grieving of a loss of time. I think there was a just genuine grief that we did not know each other sooner, and there was such a dramatic and amazing genealogical resemblance and mannerisms and personality. And the most amazing thing about this is that genes are powerful things. Interests are similar. What they did, and the fact that they were raised of similar generations, they kind of had these similar lives and families and philosophies. Not only did their mannerisms throughout all my family look very much like the Tomsick side. When you got the Tomsick brothers next to my brothers, it was powerful in the similarities, the posturing, the movements. But interests, intellect, even politics seemed to be paralleled, which was just odd. Which shows, I feel, has some genetic component. I mean, you can say it's happenstance, but I think people are wired in a particular way, and I think genetics can speak loudly about that. And their relationship was fantastic, profound. My mother was very moved by the experience, and to be an only child, and to have 6 brothers who loved her, gave her a lot to do. There were huge amounts of cards and conversations and catch-up phone calls. There were hours and hours of time that were remarkable. And then when we went out to the Tomsick reunion, the summer after we had done our DNA testing and found out that it was an accurate match, we were embraced by the entire family. There was a welcoming party for us and for her, and to introduce her to everyone and to tell all the stories about their grandparents, and as much as their father and the aunts and the uncles. She did have the gift of meeting one uncle, one of her brother's brothers, her youngest brother, her youngest uncle, and
Her father's brother.
her father's youngest brother, who had a strong memory of him, even though he was the youngest. And he sat and held her hand and cried and looked in her eyes and just said, "There is so much of your father in you. I see John in your face." The picture that we sent to them on the initial conversation before we did our DNA testing, I sent them a picture of Mom in high school, in her high school graduation picture. And I said, if there's any resemblance, if you feel like there could be a resemblance between my mom and you, and I was talking to Lee and Pauline Tomsick. Lee is 4th, I think, in line in the family, 4th son. I sent that picture, and Uncle Lee called me back immediately, and he said she looks exactly like her father. In fact, she looks more like our father than we look like our father, which is really quite true. So it was interesting that was kind of the case. So as far as the emotional continuity of how they felt about it, it was life-changing for all of them and lent a really interesting amount of meaning to all of the relationships that they had. It was a profound understanding of their father's life before and his choice to marry their mother and a lot of things. It was complicated, emotionally complicated, but very rewarding for everybody.
Yeah, when we did this research before we had the DNA test, so we thought that we had the right family, but we didn't know. And so I took it to Chad's office to show it to him, and I about fell over when I saw him because I'd seen the pictures of these 6 brothers, but I didn't know they're the same. What, 5'7" and 140 pounds?
Yeah.
They all look. He looked so much like his uncles.
Yeah, we all look similarly. In fact, I think that my brothers look remarkably. I mean, exactly like them. Yeah. And John died of a brain tumor when he was, I believe, in his early 50s, late 40s, early 50s. So he died relatively young. But the pictures of him before he passed away are remarkably like me and like my brothers as well. So the similarities across the board with all of them are really pretty strong. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you very much, Chad.
Oh,